Excited to have you joining our panel today, Inspiring the World Through AR, a conversation highlighting projects that utilize augmented reality as a tool for good. We're going to be talking with some incredible folks who have partnered with Snap over the last year. And over the last several years, we've been working with our community of creators and developers, proving that there is so much that is possible through the Snapchat camera and through AR today, not in some far-off future. Bringing technology to the real world, creating fun, immersive, and engaging experiences, ways to communicate with friends, and to learn more about the world around you. Like many things, the exploration started by utilizing AR for entertainment. And as you heard today, we've also started to introduce enterprise-level solutions for creating AR experiences to completely transform the shopping experience. What we know and what excites us is that we are just starting to scratch the surface of the power and what AR can actually do, the tremendous impact that it can have on communities and societies at large. And what is so exciting is we're already starting to see examples. We're already starting to work with creators to enhance and expand this vision of AR as a tool for good. Just a few months ago, we launched a lens in Germany at one of the most famous gates to help to increase the awareness of the impact that the 6.3 million tons of plastic has on the German society. Last month, in celebration of International Women's Day, we partnered in France to create monuments highlighting the incredible accomplishments of 8 phenomenal women who have had huge impacts on their communities, but whose stories often went untold. This next one is so cool, I just have to let the video speak for itself.
See? Oh.
Yeah.
Alright.
That's pretty cool, right? We are using Snapchat's AR technology to teach people sign language in the app. Because we want Snapchat to be a platform for people to communicate and to feel comfortable being expressive in all forms. And finally, we are using AR to engage the Snapchat generation and encourage them to become involved in the civic process by launching AR-specific lenses during election cycles. Today, it's my pleasure to dive deeper into 2 impactful examples of just how powerful a tool AR can be for good. We have 2 lightning panels featuring 2 incredible projects. So I'm going to introduce those panels for us. Zeev Schneider, Head of Design for In Situ, and Beth Pratt with the National Wildlife Federation are going to talk about how we leveraged AR technology to bring awareness of the efforts to protect animals and wildlife in the Santa Monica Mountains, right up the street from here. But before we get to them, we're going to talk to Michael Govan, President and CEO of LA County Museum of Arts, Michael French, AR developer, and Glenn Kino, artist, to learn more about monumental perspectives and the incredible work that they did through the No Finish Lines activation. Before we hand it over to our panel, we want to share a little bit about monumental perspectives.
What other
Take a look.
histories need monumentalizing? And could we use Snap's technology? I'm Michael Govan, Director of the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Monumental Perspectives is a project between LACMA and Snapchat that examines the question of monuments today. And together, we're commissioning a group of diverse artists to use Snap's augmented reality technology to place art monuments in space that reconsider really what monuments are, what they represent, what stories they tell.
All right, so let's dive right in. And our first question is actually for you, Michael Govan. LACMA is a cultural cornerstone in LA and globally. Can you tell us a little bit about why you wanted to participate and partner with Snap to bring about monumental perspectives?
Jason, it was actually watching Evan and this stage, wherever it was, virtually in 2020. We were all at home in the pandemic, incredibly frustrated that we couldn't get out and do our work. And among many news images of that year were people tearing down monuments, mostly on the East Coast, where there are a lot more monuments in the South. And I was thinking, like, it's urgent that we decide what to replace them with, or what monuments to build for the future that aren't Confederate monuments. And I was looking at the technology and what the lens creators were doing, and I was like, wait, we don't need to wait to cast bronze. We could get artists to build these things in geolocated in space to tell different stories. And so but with Snap and ourselves, and also the Andrew Mellon Foundation in New York, which has its own monuments project, the idea is let's get together and make some new monuments, like right now. Let's not wait. And so in 3 chapters and more than 12 dozen artists, Glenn being one, and Glenn and Michael are going to talk about theirs, we created these beautiful things. And I knew they would be important for history and for locality, but I didn't realize how aesthetically beautiful they would be. When Mercedes Durame, whose Tongva was honoring her Tongva ancestors on the land where LACMA sits, and using her voice, or her family's voice, mixed with ancestors, and creating a kinetic sculpture that took us to the sky, where I see Ruben Ochoa there, whose family came from Vendedores, but in MacArthur Park, you saw fruit and umbrellas flying, and money came back to that. There's an incredible celebration of all of these other histories with a sense of life that I never imagined. And in fact, so much so that one of them, Ada Pinkston's portrait of Biddy Mason, one of the most important women in late 19th, early 20th century Los Angeles, also a Black woman, who has no monuments. Incredible. She's one of the most famous people to ever live in Los Angeles, most important. And so she made a portrait which hovered over the lake at Magic Johnson Park. And we actually brought it, like you would a sculpture, to LACMA for our Black American Portrait Show. And now it will be in our collection as an artwork. That's the power of AR now.
That's absolutely incredible. Now, you mentioned that Monumental Perspectives is going into its 3rd and final phase. Can you share a little bit about how you selected which individuals to highlight, or which experiences, locations to highlight, and which artists to work with?
Yassi's sitting right there somewhere. No, we're not allowed to disclose the details of the projects until they're announced, so we have to look at the past ones. But yes, we were looking for the diversity of amazing stories. So LA is the most diverse city on the metropolis on the planet. There's so many untold stories that connect the past to our lives today and what we are today. And so yes, we selected artists we thought could bring histories to bear on our present and future, and make it as absolutely diverse geographically and otherwise as we could. So originally we were going to only do 3 or 4, and actually it was the Mellon Foundation that said, can you make it bigger? Can you cover all of Los Angeles? And the answer is no way can you do that, but we tried to cover as much as we could. So hopefully it's something that continues in some way. This is our 3rd and final chapter of this particular project.
Yeah, it'll be great to see what this inspires. As someone who's not an Angelino, but has lived here for almost 15 years now, I found myself learning so much through the AR lenses. Like, I didn't know the history of Biddy Mason the way that I do now.
And in a way, art teaches you, in this way that it's vital, dynamic, exciting, mysterious, which you should just have them talk about. I mean, this is one amazing.
Oh, perfect segue. We're going to dive right in. Let's talk about No Finish Lines. And I want to turn to Glenn, if we can. Can you tell us about No Finish Lines and what the inspiration was for this artistic vision?
So quickly, first of all, thank you for having me and having us. No Finish Line, I'll describe what it is first. It's an exploded clock floating above the LA Coliseum with elements created and collected from stories from around the neighborhood and the community. And it's interesting and amazing that we are using words like urgent to talk about things, because when I think about monuments, monuments are anything but urgent. Monuments are time capsules that are really hard to make, that assert ideas from the now into the future, right? We make something that we think is important as a community, and later on we go, people are gonna have to contend with that. It's really hard to do, which is why they're monumental, but it's also really hard to remove, which is why now when we're seeing this zeitgeist of us as a society reclaiming different histories and choosing to make decisions, it takes a monumental effort to do that. This project was really about how can we do something, as Michael said, with more fluent storytelling of the now. And so what I did was I learned that the 1932 Olympic marathon started at the Coliseum. It traveled through much of LA, through Inglewood, where actually there's a lot of new development, exciting new amazing buildings, into a dome. Things are happening there. But also there are stories that are from the past. And so what I wanted to do was honor those stories, elevate them, put them in together. And the title, No Finish Line, is that we're never ended. We're never going to end. The fight for social justice, the fight for equality, the fight to reclaim and remember our stories is never done. So,
I love that. Can you share a little bit about what it was like taking your artistic vision and translating it to AR? What was it like to work with our AR creator right next to you?
Well, I think we had a gift, because we have one of the most talented AR creators on the stage right now. For me to have an idea, and there's a music element if you look at it in the lens, and for Michael to be able to push the limits, and all of our Zooms started with like, I know you said this and Snap said this, but can you do this? And really it was not dissimilar to how we try to like invent new methodologies, and I think we broke a lot of things that Snap said were not possible, and then Michael made them all work. So we should hear from him, because it was a phenomenal process.
Pushing the boundaries.
Absolutely, yeah.
We're seeing a bit of it, but for those who haven't,
Yeah.
you should see it. This ribbon, the ribbon goes across the skies of Los Angeles and lands further in South Los Angeles. Like, this is not only geolocated, it's geo-encompassing as a project. It was really, there's no monument like that in IRL, right? In that way, but here people are standing at it, looking at it, and encouraged to travel, like with the work that takes your eyes to the sky.
I think
it's actually time-based too. There's a musical score that's many minutes long, and each one of the elements has its own dance. There's a LAFC honoring one. There's a Death Star that honors the Spielberg Museum and everything. So
yeah, the animation is amazing.
Yeah.
That's what I find that's so incredible about using AR, is there's just so many layers that you can add on and so many elements. You're absolutely right, Michael. There isn't another monument that encompasses an entire geography like a Los Angeles. So that's a really good point. I want to turn to Michael French for a little bit. What was unique about AR that made it the right tool for telling these stories, the stories of such important people in such important places to Los Angeles?
Well, one of the most kind of fundamental properties of AR, at least formally, is that any artifact, any visual element that you decide to present as part of an experience can potentially, at any moment, become any other kind of form by any number of mechanisms or inputs. So I might start here with some giant object of some kind, and in the next moment, it might transform into some little floating thing that's now looking at me, because we decide that when it's in that state, it should be aware of the user. And then in the next moment, it could transform into some kind of like data representation, because my device is getting some kind of data input that we want to affect the experience somehow. So that, and any of those transformations could happen by deliberate user interaction, or by the fact that it's Wednesday and this is the transitions that we want to happen every Wednesday, or whatever it is. But that like extreme malleability inherent in AR, where anything can become anything else at any moment by any number of mechanisms, formally sounds kind of like the opposite of a monument in a way, you know what I mean? Like that we normally think of a fixed single symbol or some kind of fixed form that is to represent an idea for all of its existence on Earth. But now when we're talking about whole histories and whole communities and cultures and neighborhoods that, as Glenn has said, may have been passed over historically in the decision about what gets a monument, the artists like Glenn who are looking at making monuments for those things now are not necessarily in every case looking for like the symbol or the form that is going to somehow express all of the richness and all of the depth and all the complexity of these whole histories and narratives that he wants to talk about. So when we started working on Glenn's project, we needed this time-based component along which to create this series of transformations and then transformations within transformations. And they're not all apparent in this one little GIF animation. But all of that together, that whole phenomenon is the monument. And then that needs a place in the physical world because it gets part of its power from the locations that he's talking about. So those two ingredients of this like infinitely malleable form and expression in the container of the real world, that's AR, right? So that's why I think it makes such a powerful exploration for artists and designers and developers.
That's amazing. You know, the one thing that I love about Monumental Perspectives is that it's an LA-based project, and we worked with so many LA-based artist creatives. And obviously, Michael, you have deep roots in LA. I'm curious if each of you can share, and I know I didn't prepare them for this question, but I'm gonna throw you a fastball. If each of you can share a little bit about what it meant to be able to do this in what is now, what has always been your hometown.
Well, it's not my hometown, but
But it
I've
is
lived here
now.
for 17 years. And the frustration of the beauty of LA is the frustration. It's so big, so diverse. And of course, we're LACMA at the moment in sort of one place. So the thrill of this was every place you go, there are different stories, different neighborhoods, different communities. And you just have this tremendous desire to celebrate that difference and diversity. And you can't in a building. That's like impossible entirely. And so what was so exciting was to literally, through artists who knew their places well and these ideas and their creativity, to even for our own institution, to sort of give a big hug to all of the, of this county and all of its diversity in that way. So really exciting and moving for us to see what artists were thinking about.
That's awesome. Glenn and Michael, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would say that for me, as I was saying, like monuments, sculptural monuments are time capsules. AR, I equivalent to a time machine, because what it allows is us to have a dialogue with the past. And so for me to be able to use the opportunity, thank you, Michael and De La Sofia and the LACMA team, to use that opportunity to dig into the past, to bring them in context of the current, and to think about the future. I think that was the best thing. So
That's awesome.
Maybe on just like a really practical note, I grew up in Redondo Beach and I've lived in downtown LA for the past 27 years or so. And just in getting involved with Glenn and LACMA in this project, I had to go out and see places and absorb a lot of the things that Glenn was talking about. And in my entire life in downtown, there were places that I just didn't know about. And the Biddy Mason that we talked about, like her homestead was right there in downtown, and I had never even been there before and didn't know that existed there. So this project and working with Glenn had me like learning new things to love about the city and about the histories here.
That's awesome. Thank you all. I want to turn to Beth and Zeev and talk a little bit about this amazing project. Yes, thank you. I want to talk a little bit about this amazing project that you all created, the Annenberg Wildlife Crossing in the Santa Monica Mountains. So Beth, we're going to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do to protect wildlife as part of the National Wildlife Federation?
Sure. So, in a nutshell, I work to improve the dating lives of cougars in the Los Angeles area, but not, the cat kind. I've worked in Yellowstone and Yosemite most of my life, so that I'd be doing wildlife conservation in Los Angeles is as big a surprise to me as most of the world that there is wildlife conservation to do here. But there is. We have a mountain lion population thriving in this area. Well, not thriving, but that's my job. We have coyotes. I'm sure most of you who live in LA live alongside wildlife day to day. But my job is to help ensure they have a future. And what you look at is our roadways, which we all hate, right? I mean, how many of you in the audience have had your dating life impacted by the 405 divide? Well, it's the same for the mountain lions here. They can't get dates outside their families because of these freeways. Not only do they get hit on them, and P22, who some of you may know, the most famous mountain lion in the world, was one of the lucky ones. He sadly just passed away after 12 years, but he was one of the ones who made it. So what we had to do was ensure that they could move across these barriers, our infamous freeways in LA. And so that's where wildlife crossings come in. And we're now building the largest wildlife crossing in the world, thanks to people like Wallace Annenberg and Governor Gavin Newsom, right outside of Los Angeles, and construction's underway.
Excellent. That definitely deserves a clap. That is great work. And what were your goals in being able to tell the story of the crossing through AR?
Yeah, this is such a visionary project. And I think what AR allows us to do is take all the different elements and tell the story visually, tell the story in a holistic way. You have wildlife, you have architecture, you have design, and also you had an awful lot of public engagement to get to this. You know, this is a project that is decades in the making, and we really had to build a movement around it. And what AR did was allow us to reach new audiences, but also allow people to connect to it in a way that just reading a scientific paper or lifting it, you know, from just a flat page of a design schematic didn't. So AR gave us a really great opportunity to communicate it in a way that wasn't possible before.
That's excellent. Ziv, I want to turn to you. Real quick, can you just share a little bit about In Situ, the company that you are a co-founder of?
Right. In Situ is a company on a mission to bring the world's future built environment to life in augmented reality and to empower people to see and interact with the future of their cities and their neighborhoods in a more tangible and accessible way.
That's awesome. Share a little bit about the Wildlife Crossing project and why you felt it was important to pursue the creation of an AR experience, allowing people to visualize the crossing.
Yeah, so we're so honored to be a part of this impactful project and to build an AR lens that brings the future wildlife crossing to life in augmented reality. We've worked with the National Wildlife Federation, the Living Habitats, and Wallace Annenberg Foundation to take decades of research and translate their work into tangible, interactive AR experience that educates and provides more information about the different design choices that went into the crossing and visualizes the crossing before and during its construction. The experience is available on site and remote. It is available in our app through Camera Kit and over Snapchat. And people can just tap in and learn wherever they are at home or on site and learn more about the impact that the crossing is going to have.
I love that because it's such an important project, but most people aren't going to go up into the Santa Monica Mountains to be able to visualize it and actually see it, especially since it's still several years from being built. But what you all are doing is allowing people to see, experience, tap in, and learn about the importance of this crossing, why biodiversity is so critical for protecting our native wildlife. So this is an amazing project. Now, but this is different from what In Situ often does. So can you share a little bit about how the Wildlife Crossing project relates to your core business and maybe how it differs? You mentioned that In Situ really specializes in AR experiences around the built environment.
Correct. So it is different, but also very similar because we have a variety of use cases. We've done parks and infrastructure projects and then rezoning projects and super talls. So our role is always to bring the future to life in AR. This project is particularly unique because it's our first project that benefits a wildlife population and mitigates the impact of human movement on wildlife. And we are super excited to be able to create this custom experience for this project. So the similarity is always that it is the future, but this is a very unique use case for us.
That's amazing. That's such cool work. And I will just, a quick plug. If you don't already follow In Situ, please do. They're doing incredible work in the city of New York, helping people to really understand how new construction, new development is going to impact their communities. So think about the conversations that we're having nationally, and especially in places like Los Angeles, about housing development and permanent supportive housing, and some of the pushback that you get in communities. In situ is really helping to demystify some of that development. So such incredible work. I want to close out with a question for both of you. What did AR allow you to accomplish that would have been impossible or too difficult with other mediums?
That's a really great question. And by the way, if you are driving on the 101 towards Ventura, you can stop. It's the Liberty Canyon exit in Agora. There's 10 pillars up. We'll break ground in 2025, but pull out and launch the app and you'll be able to see what it looks like right there in person. But for us, we had two challenges. One is we had to get public support, but how do you get people to know what this visionary project looked like when it wasn't built? So that was one challenge you overcome. The other thing is mountain lions are nicknamed ghost cats. P22, even with all his fame, very few people see them. So how do you demystify a wildlife species that you're trying to protect that nobody sees? And AR really enabled us to bring P22 and other mountain lions to people in a really real way where they're not going to see them in the wild. So it was an incredible tool.
Yeah, in our work, we have learned time and time again that AR has this ability to effectively communicate complex information in a very easy to understand way. People just understand spatial information better when they can explore it with their bodies. When we compare it with other immersive technologies, it's very important for us, since it's our mission to democratize city planning information, to use the most accessible technology that's available on everybody's mobile device, and that's why mobile AR is our platform of choice. Yeah, when you think about also like what we're the problem we're solving for how people are currently experiencing planning information, people don't necessarily have time or knowledge to interpret complex diagrams and understand what's exactly going to be built, and AR has the ability to bridge that gap and create a very comprehensible experience that people can understand more easily.
Jason, can I add one more thing? And you brought it at the beginning of this whole summit and talked about how you're never going to really be able to see the world like a chameleon or a lizard. And it's true. We'll never know how a bat sees the world. We'll even never know how a mountain lion sees the world. So to communicate how the roadways were impacting wildlife, having the AR experience and being able to see what they look like through another animal's eyes, which we can't do on our own, that was powerful stuff.
Absolutely. That's such a perfect note to end on, but I just have to say thank you to both projects, Monumental Perspectives and the Annenberg Wildlife Crossing, for the incredible work that you're doing to bring more involvement and engagement, bring this immersive technology to bear for good in the communities. And I hope for the creators in the audience that this will inspire you to take on projects like these, because there's so much more that we can begin doing to help bring the world to our various communities and help tell stories that are going untold today. So thank you to both of our panels. Thank you very much. And thank you all. I think there's still some Nikes left, so I'm gonna go see if they have a size 12. But thank you very much.